under the civil rights laws, okay, if you violate somebody's civil rights, there's a provision in the Canadian Criminal Code, which I saw, but we have to find yet, okay. But I know it's in the United States Code, okay. It's actually Title 42 United States Code, Section 1983. And it says in there that any government official that acts outside the scope of his responsibility under the color of law, okay, that phrase is in there, okay, it has to be under the color of law. And if he acts outside the scope of his responsibility, he immediately loses all of his immunity and becomes personally liable. And so the end result, it doesn't say much, but the end result of all of that is that the color of law means something that looks like law, tastes like law, acts like law, but it isn't law. Okay? And like these things right here, these are color of law. They're not real money. Okay? Real money is gold or silver coin. It's something of equal value. That's money. Okay? Under the law. That's the way the law looks at it. So that's colorable. That's color of law. Looks like money, acts like money, does everything money does, but it's not money.
Not de facto law.
That's another way of saying it. Sure, de facto law.
Because there's that one section in there on de facto law.
There is that, yeah, but it's not the one I'm looking at. It says the color of law. I remember seeing that. It's quite interesting. Anyways, I was surprised that it was in the Canadian Criminal Code. I was thinking, man, you know, I was really surprised that they had it here. But anyway, so what they do in the States, okay, is like what happened with Rodney King. The LA police beat him up. They value your rights at $1 million per day per right that they're violated. And they beat him up, so I guess they must have had eight rights or 8.5 days or something that he had his rights violated. And he sued him and got $8.5 million. And in fact, what you do is, after you make up your affidavit of citizenship, you send them a notice to inquire, which is right here. This is a notice to inquire. And there's Canadians that are doing this too, but they're not doing the affidavit. Or they're doing the affidavit and they're not doing the notice. Okay? This ain't that important. Okay? It's a good idea to do it, but the affidavit's the real important thing. Okay? And recording it. Okay? The more you do, the better your case. You start doing all of this stuff, and then you go into court and say, yes, Your Honor, but, and you start waving this stuff around and reading it into the records of the court, and it's going to be a knock-em-dead type case. You just got so much stuff that you've done and taken yourself out of these contracts and all the rest of it, that they're going to be dead in the water, okay? And you got to put them in a position where they have no choice but to rule in your favor. If they got some way that they can squirm out of ruling in your favor, they're going to do it.
Well, usually they just won't listen to what you say, period.
Well, if you read it into the records of the court, you just tell them, look.
No, they'll just stop you from saying what you're saying. Like with Fred on the Magna Carta, they would prohibited him from even saying any more. He said he was going to give him contempt of court if he mentioned the Magna Carta one more time. That's in the transcript.
Is that right?
That's
well,
right.
then file a
See,
complaint.
they will absolutely
file a complaint with the judicial review.
That's what you all would always have to do, it would appear, with any of these cases.
Yeah.
Because these guys will not listen to what you have to say.
File a complaint with the Judicial Review Board. And you start doing it, and then a lot of other people start doing it, and that judge is going to be out of there. Okay? And you know, they get some complaints. File a complaint. I'd file a complaint, you know, that he violated the law. And he actually, and I'd say, look, the sucker obviously knew that he violated the law because he removed himself from the case. But what about justice for me? You know? I'd rattle some cages about it. You know? I'd file a complaint with the Judicial Review Board. There's also in Parliament, okay, there's a Judicial Committee. Okay?
There's even the Attorney General.
That's right.
All these
Send all these suckers letters and say, hey, what's the story here? Where is justice? How come I'm not getting justice? I'm entitled to justice.
But you've got to do it.
That's right. And everybody's got to start doing it. You should do it. You should file a complaint with them saying, hey, I was in a courtroom and I saw this going on. Now, what's the story here?
Absolutely. Anybody could do it.
That's right. It doesn't have to be the guy that was standing up there. If you did it and other people do it, then all of a sudden, that judge is going to be in a bad way. I'll tell you right now. Anyways, we need to start doing that. We need to start getting more active at that kind of stuff.
Well,
the Attorney General, but there's also a Judicial Review Board, okay? And And you need to find out, you go to the courthouse or wherever, and find out how you file a complaint about a judge with the Judicial Review Board. Okay? Because that's the real way. But you can file one with the Attorney General, and in Parliament, there's a Judicial Committee, okay, that they appoint judges and that kind of stuff, and they also remove them. And they start getting enough complaints about some judge, and same thing's going to happen in the legislature. Same thing in the province. But definitely start complaining. Here's my notice to inquire. This isn't very long, so I think I'll just read it. It says, what this is doing in essence is you send a notice to the Prime Minister, to the Attorney General, to the Solicitor General, to the Premier and his attorneys and Solicitor Generals, and to the Mayor of the city, if you want, whoever, everybody, all the corporate heads, okay? And it says, I, the undersigned, am a natural-born sovereign judicial power citizen of Utah at common law, being not enfranchised by the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and I hereby expressly invoke my reservation of rights for remedy as provided in the Uniform Commercial Code, Section 1, subsection 207, with recourse under Section 1-103.6 and 1-203, wherein I explicitly reserve my right not to be compelled to perform under any contract or agreement that I have not entered into knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. And that's in the Criminal Code. My reservation serves notice upon all administrative agencies of government that I do not and will not accept the liability associated with the compelled benefit of any unrevealed commercial agreement. Okay? Now, give you a little background on this. Municipal law, the logic behind this stuff is that if you live in a city, then by definition you're in a contract and it's a compelled benefit. Okay? And so therefore, because you receive the compelled benefit, then you're a participant in the contract, but under the common law that doesn't hold water, okay? And so if you're a UN citizen, then you're taking the compelled benefit and you're in the contract, but if you're a common law citizen, then you can say, sorry, I'm not one of your slaves, and I didn't receive any compelled benefit, and I don't want your compelled benefits, and that's what this is saying, okay? Okay, I expressly subscribe to the common law rule that all taxation as applied to me in mine must be of a nature of voluntary and easily avoidable tax to be just and binding under the principle of constitutional taxation. I expressly exercise and invoke all of my constitutionally secured and inalienable rights to lawfully acquire property by engaging in lawful, innocent, harmless activities for lawful compensation, wage, or increase.
Do you mind going back to that deal again? What are the benefits?
Well,
pensions?
No.
Health benefits?
Because you're living in the city, okay? You're living in the city, they're paying for streets, sewers, all that junk, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But, see, you can actually live here, see, and this is where it gets back to common law. Before the War of Independence in the States, okay, there was the Continental Congress. And then, back then, the Continental Congress had jurisdiction over all of North America. Okay? And the Continental Congress had the whole continent laid out in sections, townships, and ranges. Well, that brings the common law in. Okay? So you can actually be living in Section 7, Township 38, Range 27 West, which happens to be right here. You can actually be living in that section, township, and range without living in the city of Calgary, believe it or not.
Because the range goes way out?
No, because you're in the common law jurisdiction and not in the corporate jurisdiction. It has to do with jurisdiction. Okay? You see what I'm saying? Because you know how sections, townships, and ranges don't work, don't you?
Yeah. Part of Calgary is in the Rocky View township, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not that familiar with Calgary. But
no, it wouldn't be.
Well, he'd know actually. But and wherever the point is that your common law location, okay, is always a section, township, and range. Okay.
But then you would you normally always have that anyway in a legal description, but it just defines it down further to plan such and such lot, such and such block.
Yeah, but that's getting into the city. Okay, you don't need to go any more than this nearest
Okay,
square
so
mile.
you wouldn't be. Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
That's all you need.
Near.
Nearest square mile. That's right. And when you use your mailing address, you always put down, like if you live at this address, this is what, 1483, 14th Street?
23, 1st Street,
Right.
northeast.
Okay. So your mailing address, if you're a common law citizen, then it would be care of 1423 1st Street, northeast, suite number 5. Care of that address. In other words, you're saying that if you send my mail to that address, I'll get it. But I don't live there. Because I live in the common law jurisdiction. You see what I'm saying? That address is in the corporate jurisdiction. But I live in the common law jurisdiction. You see what I'm saying? So it just has to do with jurisdictions. It's an overlay. And then when you put down the postal code, you put down in brackets next to it, you put down near, okay? Because the postal code has to do with federal regions again, okay? Federal jurisdiction. So you put down in brackets, because they won't deliver your mail without the postal code on it, okay? So you put down in brackets near it, because you live near the postal code, but you don't live in it. You live near the federal region, but you don't live in it, okay? That's all to cover your backside, because at some point, they may decide to bring that up in court and say, oh, hold it. You said that you lived in the federal region right here. That makes you a federal citizen. One of our chattel. And so now we can do what we want with you, have our way with you. Anyways, that paragraph I just read talked about the right to pursue happiness, okay? And that means you have the right to work and you're not involved in a commercial activity. Remember I was telling you about that yesterday, about involved in commercial activities. Well, it says here, I expressly exercise and invoke all of my constitutionally secured and inalienable rights to lawfully acquire property by engaging in lawful, innocent, and harmless activities for lawful compensation, wage, or increase. In other words, I want to pursue happiness, but I am not involved in any of your commercial activities. Commercial activities are regulatable by the federal government. If you're involved in commerce or commercial activities, then that's their property. That's their jurisdiction now. Paragraph 4. I expressly, in good faith, deny that I am involved in any revenue taxable activities, events, occasions, privileges, or incidents, and I am not subject to any income or other revenue tax, and therefore I am a non-taxpayer. Number 5, I expressly declare I have never voluntarily participated in, nor have I freely entered into, but always being compelled into all corporate government statutes, being enforced as commercial obligations of commercial agreements. Some call business and marriage licensing, building and driver's permits, vehicle and voting registration, forced motor vehicle insurance, forced employee identification numbers, forced tax identification numbers, forced social security numbers, etc. Paragraph 6. I also invoke my Sixth Amendment right to be informed of the nature and cause of my accusation that may be made by you, and in doing so I shall demand a clear and plain disclosure sufficient to enable me to fully prepare my defense as to the sort, kind, character, or species of A, any court which may seek my plea, and B, the rules under which my plea will be prosecuted. Paragraph 7. My rights herein are valued at $1 million each, and after express notice for cause, said damages will accrue as separate and enforceable claims for each day during which a separate deprivation of right, etc. is committed. Paragraph 8. I hereby demand that all respondents protect me, my, and mine in my peaceful exercise or enjoyment of all my rights, privileges, and immunities, etc. Paragraph A. I further give notice to all above respondents, if they or their agents contest any item above, let them investigate and otherwise inquire, and be heard in a proper formal hearing in and before the proper administrative agency. Whereupon I demand proofs of such supposed jurisdiction, claimed interest within 30 days following this notice, and with 15 days extension if requested, or forever yield to the doctrines of estoppel, waiver, and fraud. And basically that's it. And you send that away with this other stuff here, get some people to witness everything, and you fire it off to whoever, and then after 45 days, You give them 45 days, you send them a judgment, because they're not going to answer to it. You send them a judgment saying, you guys didn't respond. I'll get the judgment out. You'll find it kind of interesting.
Well, it's all very good. Most people don't know anything about it, though.
You're right.
The lawyers don't either.
No, I mean, lawyers
They
can
won't
get up and
tell
talk
you.
like this.
Actually, the lawyers know about it. Some of them do.
But have they studied it?
Well, they have an idea about it, I guess. Is maybe a better
But are lawyers actually allowed to, as officers of the court, to even represent you in that regard?
They got to handle that with kid gloves, let me tell you. Here we go. Here's the judgment. Judgment and order. An order of default having been entered, and the judge and the affiant judge de facto presiding, having completed the adjudicative proceeding without your participation, based on the alleged verified facts and the affiant's notice to inquire, inter alia action at law is hereby ordered. That judgment is granted against you and in favor of the claimant affiant, that all said respondents named and constructively noticed have not been prejudiced by the affiant's action at law. And it is here further ordered that respondents are in want of primary administrative jurisdiction, and hereafter impose legislative statutory code liability in the nature of civil or criminal sanctions, or in personam or in rem sanctions, within the purview of the Uniform Commercial Code against affiant or his property, based upon the exclusive administrative record for review. It is further ordered that any motion for review of the foregoing shall be filed in writing within 10 days of the date hereof, and with 5 days extension if requested. Specify in detail the particular errors and objections with points and authority, and unless so filed, this order shall be final and not subject to review or appeal. And then, this is the order of default, and it says, be it known by all men that 45 days or more have passed since each of the above respondents have been served with an original verified instrument, notice to inquire, notice UCC section 1-207 invoked, notice of possible prejudice with demand for hearing with supporting affiant, notice by affidavit of judicial power citizen with enclosures, certificate of service, certificate of contents witnesses, caveat, valuation of rights, demand you protect me and mine by prepaid U.S. certified mail mailed on the 26th day of July 1994, return receipts requested. An adjudicative proceeding having properly commenced and the respondents having failed to participate or request a proper formal hearing in and before the proper administrative agency within 30 days time allowed by rule, and no extension time having been granted, the default of the respondent is hereby entered against all named and constructively noticed respondents. And that's it.
That's something that Fred could have submitted.
Probably.
He did actually submit something similar to that, and he never received anything back.
No, they don't. No, but you got a paper trail.
Can I copy those?
You can have it.
Have you got more?
Yeah, I got one.
And
Here.
you see what we'll have to do is,
Yeah, that's it. There's some good documents. The guys that did this, I'll tell you, they know what they're doing. They've had battles and they've won. They don't lose.
Where'd you get that book from?
From the guys that did it.
You were down there, right?
I live down there, yeah.
Oh, you
I
did?
know the guy. He's a good friend of mine. He's the judge. Eh?
I've got a copy of that here somewhere.
That book?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't think you do.
yes, I do.
Are you sure?
You left it when you first time you come up here, and I copied it.
Oh, I bet I did. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
But like everything else, I've got to find out what it is.
Well, I can tell you.
You take it that Tony had to follow this procedure after them admitting in writing that they had made a mistake, and they credited, or he has a credit of $72,000. Then if he followed this stuff, he should have been able to collect. Right?
Well, actually, no. He would. If they put it down in writing and he's got a credit, all he has to do is go to a judge, go to a court, okay, and sue them basically and get a judgment, okay.
Yeah.
And then what he does is he goes to the sheriff and goes to their offices in Revenue Canada and start taking furniture home with the sheriff. and about $72,000 worth. Eh? That'd be a bunch of furniture, computers,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. Eh?
Yeah.
But you know, he starts hauling their stuff off, and they probably cut him a check. Is probably what they do.
But he
You know what
did.
I mean?
Well,
But he couldn't
But
get
that's,
the
he
judge-
wouldn't have to do that. If he's got some in writing where they went and admitted that they owe him $72,000, then that's all he has to do is go to a judgment, get a judgment, go to a judge and sue him and get a judgment, which would be easy because he's got their in writing from their computer. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And then once that's done, go down to the county sheriff and go there and start seizing their assets. That's all. That's easy.
So
That's about the only thing the county sheriff in
problem-
Canada does anymore.
his problem was that his problem was that he couldn't get a lawyer to represent him, and he didn't. I guess
See,
feel
and this
that
is-
he wanted to represent himself.
This is what we got to do and this is one reason I was thinking about going to law school. But regardless of whether I go to law school or not, we got to go and we got to figure out how to sue people, okay? Because we got to start suing the government. We got to start suing the employees of the government for violating our common law rights.
There are certain agents out there, like that Horst Rusnak. I think he can maybe now work as an agent somehow. But there is an legal agents society
Is it really?
in Alberta, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So somehow they've been able to practice law somehow, and I really
Yeah.
don't know how it is.
Well, that's a common law thing again. Even in the States, they'll tell you that you can't work for somebody for hire without a license. But if you push it, then they'll let you. You know what I mean? You start quoting the right citations and saying, yes, I can, because of this, and because of this, and because of this, then they'll say, oh, all right. They like to play these little games, you know? And it's the way it is, I guess. But
Because they do have this 1032J, which prohibits specifically corporations, which
yeah,
you,
but you're not
you
a
know
corporation.
about. Right. Exactly.
That's right. And if you're not a member of the bar, then you're not involved in any contract.
But it's the Legal Professions Act that they've tried to set up so you couldn't represent yourself. The Legal Professions Act is what
Man,
you would
big
have
time.
to
The rules of court
assault.
in Canada are extremely complicated, and they use those rules against you. That's routine procedure. They definitely try and disenfranchise you from your rights.
So you have to insist.
Yeah, you got to push it. That's the only way you'll ever get anything with these Gestapo types running around.
Anyway, I interrupted you there. Sorry.
Anyways, what you do is you fill out that notice to inquire, the notice to the judgment and order, and that affidavit of citizenship. And if you and what you do is you make out the affidavit of citizenship, and we have to figure out where to record the thing because they should be recorded because then they have to recognize them if they're a government document. But you know, what I was thinking is if worse comes to worse, you ought to be able to take it down to the county recorder in Great Falls, Montana, and record it. You know, I bet you. Take it down to, you know, shoot, who cares? They don't care what they record. They record it and it becomes a government document, even if it's U.S. government, who cares? You know
It's
what I mean?
like registering or incorporating a strange picture. If you incorporate it or license it here through the Library of something in the United States, they call it.
Library of Congress.
It's universal.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying, isn't it?
sure. Yeah, once it's recorded, the principle is that, see, judges have to give judicial notice to government documents, okay? And if you make out your affidavit, okay, and record it somewhere, then it becomes a government document. So, if you have to, record the sucker in the States.
Are you going to be mentioning colorable contracts and the commercial code a little
Uniform.
more in detail at all?
Well, the colorable contracts are just any contract that's the color of law, you know. And I talk about it in there. Statutory code, statutory commercial liability. You know what I mean? In other words, that's in essence that they really succinctly explain what these are. They're statutory commercial liability, and what you do is they go and pass these statutes, okay? But these statutes are only for the corporate province. You see what I'm saying? And if you're one of their corporate citizens, then they apply to you. But if you're not, then they don't apply to you. But they don't tell you that. And so therefore, and they automatically, they don't even tell the government officials that. So they automatically look at you and say, you're one of my corporate citizens, and I want some tribute from you. And unless you tell them, no, I'm not one of your corporate citizens, and if you mess with me anymore, I'm going to take you to court and sue your ass and your boss's ass too. You know? And you tell them that, and all of a sudden, oh, well, okay, have a nice day.
How is it that the universal or uniform commercial code is actually
that's U.S.
It's not in Canada?
I don't think so. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I've
been looking in the law library. I haven't seen it.
Because I was just wondering if that's one of those international agreements you were talking about that.
You never know.
That you know, like the GATT agreement or something that
Uniform
overrides our constitution. So.
Yeah, that's U.S. for sure. Now I don't think it's Canada, but it'd be interesting to see if it is or not. Whether it's they may have adopted it, but I don't think so. I was looking in the law library for all of their statutes, and I didn't see Uniform Commercial Code. I was looking for it. So they might call it something else too. But again, the criminal code seems to have these reservation of rights, you know, that are mentioned, that are even mentioned in the Uniform Commercial Code. You know, the right not to be compelled to perform under any contract. You know, that kind of stuff is in the criminal code. So if you're gonna have to. That's even better because the criminal code has kind of got teeth. You know, it kind of scares people. You start talking about the criminal code. You know what I mean? And you start talking about that stuff, and it gets their attention. But I should get a copy of the criminal code. I didn't realize you can buy it like that. And it doesn't change that much. It might change a little, but you can always go to the law library and, you know, take a look at the particular. But it gives you, if you have your own copy, it gives you an idea of everything that's there. And then if you have one particular section that you want to have the latest version of it, you know what I mean? You can go to the law library and copy it. But if it's changed, it may not have changed. But it doesn't change that much. It changes a little bit, but it stays pretty constant. And the criminal code is based on common law, so it's pretty well established. Although what they're doing is they're putting a lot of stuff in there like hate crimes and gun registration and all that junk in the criminal code, and that's not common law. You know, that's their contracts again. And I'm convinced that if you're a commoner, okay, a natural person, that stuff wouldn't apply to you. You could beat it in a heartbeat.
See, the hate section in the criminal code specifically is if you are threatening to kill somebody only, or an identifiable group. So that's probably no different than in common law if you're threatening to kill somebody. Yeah,
well, actually, there is a section in the criminal code that's threatening to kill somebody.
But a lot of people don't know what the hate means, you know, because they never really tell you what the definition of hate in that case is. So actually not speaking ill of somebody, but it's actually threatening to kill them.
And see, again, that's an example of the news media twisting something to how they want it to suit them. You know, they have no concept of the law, and you know, I've thought about what I'd say. You know, if somebody came up to talk to me, and that's probably what I'd say is, you better go and understand the law and study the law before you come talk to me, because you don't have any concept of what you're even talking about right now. But
I have an old law book if I can find it. If you like, I'll give it to you, because I'm getting too old to use it. I may have given it away, but if I find it, you want it? I can give this man too, but he's going way up north somewhere down in the States. But you're local.
Is it a criminal code or something? Or just a book on law?
I think a lawyer used it, so I can't just tell you. It's a long time since I looked at it.
Oh, give it to the office for part of the library.
Yeah.
We're down me.
Here.
No, Peter. Hope. For court.
Well, I didn't mind leaving it here. The only thing Peter's or something like me is getting kind of old, but you're quite young yet.
Well, it'd be good to start building up a library, a law library. You know. Really.
No, I can bring it here if I find it. I don't mind.
Good. But here's an interesting article. Bargain. An agreement between two or more persons intended to be enforceable at law.
Notice they use the word at law.
Right. You use that term.
That's right. That's a common law. That's what they're saying is at common law. Is what it means.
Yeah.
But that's really important when you start using these arguments is at law. And I'll tell you, because you start using those words and you get their attention. It's just like using ab initio. Okay, ab initio means it has to do with contracts, and it means that if there was a fraud involved in a contract at the inception of the contract, like there was in these cases, okay, then it's what's called non pro tunc. In other words, it doesn't exist because of the fraud. But ab initio means it's non pro tunc ab initio means it doesn't exist, and ab initio means from the beginning. It means it never did exist. And you say that, you say, well, this contract that was fraud inception from the inception, and so therefore it never did exist. You say that in court, and the judge, he'll sit there and okay. But if you say this contract is non pro tunc ab initio, then all of a sudden you get his attention because now you're talking his language. You see what I'm saying?
Hey,
You're talking,
where does this guy come from?
yeah, exactly. You get his attention.
Yeah.
Then he realizes that you've been studying the law. You know what you're talking about. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're less likely to grill you, because a lot of times that's another thing that judges will do, is they'll try to entrap you. Okay? They'll sit there and you start bringing all this stuff up, and they'll start asking you questions. Like, a good example is in the States, okay, the Uniform Commercial Code, Section 1, subsection 207, is a reservation of rights, okay? And the rights that you're reserving when you sign, what it says is if you put down without prejudice, when you sign your name involving money, okay, you're reserving your rights to be compelled to perform under a contract that you haven't expressly agreed to, okay? And that's the right you're reserving. You're reserving the right to be compelled to perform under something you haven't agreed to. That's what that says. But a lot of people don't know that, and so they'll go into court and they'll say they sign something without prejudice, eh? And the judge say, well, what does that without prejudice mean? He's trying to entrap them, eh? And they'll say, well, what that without prejudice means is I'm reserving my rights. And the judge will say, well, what rights? And they'll say, well, my right to keep and bear arms, and my right to protection against unreasonable search and seizure, and my right to freedom of the press. And the judge will say, no, that's not it, and I rule against you. Because the guy didn't know what he's talking about. You see what I'm saying? And so they'll do that. Now, my response is that if I see the judge is trying to do that, I'm going to say, Your Honor, are you trying to entrap me? Because if you are, I have to ask you to remove yourself from this case because you're obviously biased in favor of the Crown. You know what I mean? And that's what I'd say. To see what he says, and I may push it. You know what I mean? It depends on if I know what the answer is to that question. If I don't know what the answer is, I might push it. I'll say, Your Honor, I have to ask you to remove yourself from this case. If I do know what the answer is, I might tell him what the answer is, but I might not too. You know what I mean? I might go along and I'll say, well, if I was an attorney, would you be asking me these kinds of questions? If I was one of your members of your club, would you be asking me these kinds of questions? And kind of push it. But you have to, you're getting into a fine line, borderline contempt too. You know what I mean? And he might decide to get bent on a shape at you or something,
But does that also apply if the judge is acting for the prosecution and making all the prosecution's arguments and countering your arguments for the prosecution?
Then he is obviously biased in favor of the Crown, and he should remove himself from the case. Definitely. But he's not gonna. Well, he might, but as in the case of Fred, he did, because obviously it's probably pretty flagrant. But if he doesn't, then the onus is on you to bring it up and say, Your Honor, aren't you a little bit biased in favor of the Crown? Or something like this. You know what I mean? Because that judge has to maintain strict neutrality, okay? He can't be on one side or the other. Now, the interesting thing about a courtroom situation is that you have the prosecuting attorney here, and you, the defendant here, and the judge over here, okay? He's supposed to be middle of the line, but really he's not, because what happens in practice is the prosecuting attorney knows the law, okay? The judge knows the law, and you're the one that's trying to sort your way through the whole thing. And so if the judge acts even a little bit biased in favor of you, the prosecuting attorney is going to say, Your Honor, because he knows what the judge is doing and he knows where the line is. You see what I'm saying? And so the judge can't even help you a little bit. Now, he'll probably be helping the prosecuting attorney to a certain extent. They might be drinking buddies or who knows what. And so, but then the onus is on you to pick up on that and say, hold it, Your Honor. I'm entitled to a fair trial here, and that means you have to be neutral. You know? And
well, what if they even, like in Fred's case, I mean, the judge, so-called judge, and the prosecutor were, you know, go and have coffee after court together. I mean, what were they talking about?
well, and there's obviously an obvious, especially after his behavior, I'd file a complaint. That you need to file a complaint, and the more people that do that, if you know some other people, if there were some other people there that were patriots that were witness to all of this, file complaints. Every one of you should file a complaint separately and independently, and you know, it'll rattle some cages, because that's outrageous.
But the guy did remove himself from the case anyway. But
Well,
I wonder if there's any recourse at this time.
So what? It doesn't matter if he removed himself from the case. It shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Well, that's what they're trying to get at.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know, this is a dilatory plea. He hasn't made anything.
That's right.
And the
That's
judge
right.
made the plea for him.
And so, but what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to come point by point why the judge violated the law, okay, or the rules of court. In other words, you're going to have to show,
Under the Judges Act, for example.
well, Judges Act. What do you mean? What he
Well,
did?
there is actually a Judges Act that they have that
That's
requires
possible.
their
That'd be good to get that sucker out.
procedures. Yes.
Get that sucker out. But there's also the rules of court. Okay. In other words, if he tried to read it into the record of the court and the judge wouldn't let him have a say, you know what I mean? Well, then he's got to let him have a say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if he's gonna, and you're a witness to this, well, then I'd complain about that. I'd say, what is this? Some sort of kangaroo court? You know, and you're not allowed to at least have your say. You know?
Well, the rules or the Judges Act primarily is concerned with fairness in judgment. That justice must be fair.
Well, and so the rules of court are there to make sure that everybody gets treated the same. Okay, but the bottom line is the judges are accountable, and
Judicial Review Board.
yeah,
That's the one.
yeah,
You know,
that's what you need to do.
I'll buy you a salad when you go home and you want to stop somewhere. I'm going to go and get a salad too.
All right.
You would take this, wouldn't you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad you were able to come out. I hope you picked something up that might be useful.
Oh yeah, this is very interesting. I was kind of, this is very interesting, but I was also...
Some of it still needs work.
Are you an American?
Yeah, I've been living down there. Well, I'm a Canadian. I grew up here, but I'm also U.S. And so I've been living down there for about 10 years.
Out of what?
And you know Murray Govro.
You betcha.
He's my brother.
You're Gary Gover?
Glenn.
Glenn.
Not Govro Fern, but he's my brother. I was adopted by my stepfather after my dad died. So.
Is that right? I'm Paul McMillan. Pleased to meet you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, for sure.
But so
I
anyways,
was real disheartened to hear about Murray's luck against our Zog courts.
yeah,
His tax case, and of course it was his fault for in the first place hiring a shyster, no matter how eloquent.
yeah,
Nevertheless, a lawyer, and as such, an officer of the court.
that's right. You're right there.
Who must cave in to the Zogs.
It's although there's some of them. I don't know. In Canada, they seem to be more independent than in the States. In the States, the lawyers are like, well, see, in Canada, you got barristers and solicitors. Okay.
I mean, barracudas and shysters.
And in the States, they got attorneys, because what happened is, and the theory behind in Canada, the solicitors represent the Crown, and the barristers represent you, okay? And so they're supposed to be completely independent, although all of them say I'm a barrister and a solicitor. So
That's right.
Then it makes you wonder if they really are independent or not.
Now, then, do you
But,
know about the junior 6 justices on the Supreme Court bench?
No.
They have been sworn in as deputy governor generals. How much of a fair shake do you expect from them?
Yeah, really. Although they are ruling, you know, this one guy with the Royal Bank.
Which way are they ruling?
But this one guy with the Royal Bank, they ruled in favor of him. Where these Peter knows about it. Where these farmers up in northern Alberta, sued the Royal Bank and got a judgment in their favor, $250,000, where the Royal Bank was saying that they owed.
I'd heard something about that. I think it was one of the last Winston journals.
And what happened is the Royal Bank appealed, and the appellate court said, yeah, the jury gave them $200,000, right?
Oh.
In the States, once the jury makes a decision, that's final. There's no appeal.
Should be.
And I agree. And that's one of the things that I was just putting everything away, but I'm glad you're here because I got.
Peter
I would like to
the
see
Tony
in Canada.
Did he?
This is an American organization,
advocate,
but
remember?
there's no reason why we can't set up a Canadian organization like that. And so I'm handing those out, just encouraging people that somebody needs to set one up, you know. And an organization like that called a Fully Informed Jury Association. The idea being is that, for one thing, they educate people about jury rights, okay? But for another thing, they pass a law that says that judges have to tell the jury what their responsibilities are too.
Sort of kind of like the law that also goes hand in hand with us serfs who work for wages on an hourly basis, having to get our taxes deducted at source.
Yeah, that's extortion.
Outright.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
There's who was
but
it?
nevertheless, that law exists.
You're right.
And our employers
not a law.
hide behind it.
That's not a law. What that is the contract. Okay. Because
what's that if it isn't a contractual law?
Well, yes, you're right. But the way the law is written, okay, and this is one thing we got into earlier, is you have basically you got private law and public law, okay, and contracts are private law, okay. Public law is the Constitution. It's called the Black Letter Law. The Criminal Code, most of the Criminal Code is an example of public law. There's some of the Criminal Code that wouldn't even be called that. Actually, it has to do with contracts, because under the common law, they can't stop you from holding a gun, and they can't make you jump all through all these hoops in order to own a gun either under the common law.
How about carrying it?
Well, there you go. Okay. So, anyways, but what they've done is they've fraudulently, through coercion, intimidation, and fraud, gotten the people into these contracts. But one example is they tell you that you can't get a job without a social insurance number.
So you sign right there and you're on the line.
And you're on the hook. Well, that's not true, too, because you can get a job without a social insurance number. Okay? And in the States, they tell you the same thing about a social security number. And right now, as we speak, I have the U.S. government suing a company for firing me for not having a social security number.
The government's on your side.
The government is suing them. That's right.
No shit on us.
I'm serious.
And do you stand to collect any dineros from that case once it's finally
I
gone
will
through?
get... All that'll happen is they'll hire me back, and I'll get all my back pay.
I see.
Okay?
I see.
Because...
So essentially right now you're working on the clock.
Basically, yeah.
You just it takes a long time.
Let me show you something else. There's where's that affidavit of citizenship? See, you can, it's much more cut and dry in the States than it is here. I'll give you that. But I think that you can still obtain justice here, but the judges are squirmy, okay, and they use the rules of court against you, okay?
That's right.
So you have to know the rules of court. You have to go in there knowing the rules of court, and you have to have laid some foundations, okay? In other words, they automatically categorize you as one of their slaves unless you
prove otherwise.
Okay? Well, that's where you make up an affidavit of citizenship. Let me get you mine. You make up an affidavit of citizenship, and basically, mine's about 10 pages.
Now, is this citizenship or sovereignty?
Well, in the States, you're citizen. There's two types of citizenship. Okay? And so it's citizenship. But in Canada, well, you can still call it a citizenship, but it has more to do with class in Canada, or status.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But basically what you're doing is again, you're saying, I'm a commoner. I'm not one of your enfranchised citizens. I am a commoner, and I'm a natural person, and I will not be compelled to perform under any of your commercial agreements. I'm just not going to play your game. And I reserve my rights. And if you have obtained any contracts from me, it has been through fraud, intimidation, coercion.
And I'm
so
hereby
therefore,
revoking all of them as null and void.
That's right.
Under that.
Yeah, it's about 10 pages. I'll get one out here, and it's done by a group in Arizona that showed me this stuff. That there's about
He's got a war chest here.
there's a bunch of groups down there that are teaching this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
There's a bunch of them.
I know. The freemen and like that.
This guy here, this is an actual operating sovereign common law town that operates and has been operating in Arizona for 10 years.
No shit.
I'm serious.
He must be the one that got pulled over and they thought he was speeding and all that. But they found they were mistaken after they found his loaded rifle in the trunk after he had told them about it and all that.
That's this guy. This guy here, and this is his license plate that he uses.
KG Granse.
I got his. Well, let's play
What's
it.
his tax
I got
registration license constant?
Here, you can read that. Let me play. Let's play about 15 minutes of his videotape that I think everybody here needs to see.
Oh, they haven't seen yet?
No.
Oh, great.
Actually, Alan saw it last night, but
I don't want to bore you.
we need to see it today because this tape is an 8-hour tape. I've got 2 of them
8 hours.
that are done by him,
Yeah.
and he explains some of this stuff, and it's really good. It's knock 'em dead type stuff.
I believe
Okay.
it. I believe it.
This guy is a law professor. Okay,
No shit.
I'm serious.
Why didn't he come up here and go head to head with that?
This guy knows his stuff. You should listen to the tape. That's all I can say.
When Ron told me you were going to be here the other night, I just flipped. I had it written down the whole 9 yards, and I fully intended to get here, and then all of a sudden I woke up Saturday night in front of the one-eyed Jewish babysitter, and it was way past bedtime. I figured, oh no, I don't want to get there now.
Yeah, listen very carefully to this. It's a telephone conversation,
Oh, okay.
so don't interrupt it.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna try and tape it. The audio is kind of wacky on it.
Well, naturally, if it's...
Actually, that picture looks not too bad though.
No.
Here's a poor victim.
Let's rewind it a little bit further.
Well, considering that it's been taped in EP mode, I think that's tremendous that you got that again.
When you were
It's a
young
pretty good picture.
and gotten into a fight, and you didn't know what the other guy's strength really was. And come to find out you won. You found out you were stronger than the other side. Now, of course, you could have been chicken and run. But then it would haunt you, wouldn't it? What are we doing today?
He gets the Minnesota Attorney General on the phone. Okay, and you're going to listen to his conversation.
Well, what I'll do
That's
is
who
I'll
it is.
put this right on it. Yes.
If you're going to do this much farm, I've got a second mic that's a wire.
Did you want to do that? Would that work?
That's that mic.
Oh.
Let's rewind it a little further because there's something else. Talks about himself a little bit here, and I think that's important.
Advises them to do. That's it. Nothing more and nothing less. That's your #1 procedure. To ask for their authority. Now, I'm going to take you through a lot of these steps. It isn't so much, oh, did I say it correctly? You see, your problem is that once you say something and they go, huh, you think you said it wrong. No, they're going, huh, how do I answer? Because if I do, I'm dead meat. That's what they're saying to you. Oh, God, get a life, guys.
Ask them, what is it about the question they don't understand?
Exactly. Okay, Thomas, where's that tape? I got it here.
See, ultimately, though, I can see this whole thing rotting down or caving in to the point where the guy with the biggest guns in his car wins. And
Should I come back with a really mean answer?
Listen to this.
If
This
I
guy's
can't
really
educate
good.
you, how am I ever going to educate them? You know, I've been traveling traveling the circuit now for, what, a year and a half teaching. I've been in the law profession since about 69 or so. I've got some sufficient background. I'm going on 45. I ran for Congress twice. I've been invited to the White House 6 times. Had dinner with Reagan twice. Worked for the Justice Department, National Chamber of Commerce, the Trade Commission, Commerce Department, just to mention a couple, ladies and gentlemen. I've been through it. I can't tell you how many cases I've gone through. How many victories I've had. I lost count a long time ago. I can't, give you my whole life experience. There isn't time. All I can do is to convince you that what I'm saying is correct and that you've got to develop a new attitude. You don't have to wait till you know it all, ladies and gentlemen, but you do have to act.
That's the key.
Many times I go in not knowing what the hell I'm talking about. And I just start talking. But I know a hell of a lot more than they do. And therefore I win. How many times any one of you guys been in school when you were young and gotten into a fight and you didn't know what the other guy's strength really was? And come to find out you won. You found out you were stronger than the other side. Now, of course, you could have been chicken and run. But then it would haunt you, wouldn't it? What are we doing today? This is going to pick up on the mic, huh? Okay. Well, what I'll do is
He knows a lot about the law, but watch.
Yeah.
Mechanically, like anybody that's got a lot of smarts, mechanically they're klutz.
That's
Watch.
Did you want to do that?
Perpetual students can't change a car tire.
Yeah, watch. He's trying to get the tape in and it won't go in.
Why isn't this closed?
It's warped. Send it back.
So you put it in the top.
No, it's in the right way. Oh, I know what I did. I was just to put it in there and then close it down. Yes.
Yes. Now let's get it out of there. Here's it.
There you go.
This is a VCR tape. He's trying to.
It's audio. All you'll hear is the conversations. All you hear.
Mr. Owen's office, please.
Just a moment.
Bill Owen. Bill? Yes. Carl returning the call again. Yes, hold on just a second. Thank you, sir.
He hasn't put it on his hand.
Yeah, it's like one of those, embryo type of thing where God knows what's going to happen anyway. We're here to find somebody. Yeah, that's true. Okay. So we'll make okay, fine.
Thanks. Well, we finally connected up here. Yeah. Now, name of person to whom we are speaking or what this is Karl Granse. Yeah. We're talking about Woods? Yes. Maryland? No. Ron Woods. Ron Woods? Yeah. Remember I talked to you from the court building the other day? Yep. Okay. What was his charge again? It's not a charge, it was the summons for his books, records, and papers. Yes. Via the grand jury. Okay. My apologies for being at least sounding as if I'm scatterbrained. You're not. Yeah, I talked to you on the cellular. When you're handling probably 80 cases as you are, yeah, it's easy to get lost. You do criminal or mostly or civil or
Any kind.
anything that comes through the door, as they say?
Well, not exactly anything that comes to the door, but I'm certainly, working on constitutional issues. It's the word that everybody's forgotten that exists.
And I should be chuckling, but I hear
It's
that.
the truth. I deal with a lot of county attorneys, and they openly admit it to me. So it's no problem. I reviewed the transcript from the case.
Okay.
And now I see that on page 8, lines 5 through 6, it says, we are conducting at this point a state income tax violation investigation.
Yes, Mr. Smith did reveal that in open court.
All right. Now, if this was to be the truth, that would be in violation of the Administrative Procedural Act. Do you want to know why?
Okay.
Because the commissioner has the right to enforce the tax law through the Administrative Procedural Act. His duties are first and foremost to conduct the investigation himself. It can't be taken on...
Are we talking state here?
Yes, absolutely. I reviewed all the statutes under the taxation, many of the your administrative code, plus your Administrative Procedural Act. And it stipulates that the tax commissioner, and I'm reading from 57003.20, the tax commissioner may require by order or subpoena served on any company, firm, corporation, person, association, partnership, or public utility in the same manner that a summons is served in a civil action in a court of common pleas. Now, further, it stipulates here, upon the request of the Department of Taxation, the Attorney General shall aid in an investigation. There's been no request. Now, so what's happening is that this situation we have with the grand jury right now, if this isn't truly a income tax investigation case, has jumped the Administrative Procedural Act. And what's wrong with that is that many due process rights are voided out because, and I know the Attorney General's office knows this, that if you fail to make an argument or defense at administrative level and then try and make it in the court, you're not allowed. So therefore, if you fail to establish a record of defense and certain objections at the administrative level, you cannot bring it up in the district court level. Therefore, he waives all that because there was no administrative proceeding.
Okay.
Therefore, the court currently right now lacks subject matter jurisdiction for failure of the Revenue Department to proceed in the way that they were supposed to govern by both their own statutory law, their regulations, and in violation of the Administrative Procedural Act. But furthermore, since this is a case involving records, it is the duty of the commissioner to, as found on section 573303, contents of annual report, and it stipulates the tax commissioner may prescribe requirements as to the keeping of records and other pertinent documents, the filing of copies of federal income tax returns and determinations, and computations reconciling federal income tax returns with the report required by section 573302 or 5733.021 and 573.02.1 of the revised code. Now, this is the important message here, and I know this because I win IRS cases every time. The commissioner must require any corporation by rule and notice served on such corporation to keep such records as he considers necessary to show whether and the extent to which a corporation is subject to this chapter. Now, Mr. Woods has never received such notice to keep such books, records, and papers. Therefore, we have another failure of the administrative process by the Commissioner of Revenue. So he's supposed to enforce the law, not the Attorney General or his assistant or the county attorney. It must start at the administrative procedural level. Otherwise, it does nothing but deny due process.
Okay.
Legal procedure, 5 yards to the plaintiff.
Supposition.
Well, but
I
who I went to school with? You know who taught me? Kenneth Colt Davis. You know who he is? He's the man who wrote the book on administrative process. And he wrote the very first book. Now, he was a professor of law at the University of Minnesota. And I learned from him.
Your argument being that absent an administrative procedure, either quote investigation or request,
correct,
there is no subject matter jurisdiction for this court, or that is to say, the Attorney General or any county grand jury lacks jurisdiction to investigate a possible violation of the state income tax.
Sure. Now, if there had been a prior investigation by the Commissioner of Taxation, and he said, look what I just found, then he goes to the county attorney or the state attorney and says, look, I'm going to require you to investigate this case and deem whether you want to file criminal or civil charges. That's what it says in the statute.
Similar to, for example, an election law violation, where an elections commission convenes, determines that there's been a violation, and if in fact they reach a finding of probable cause, as it were, they then refer it to the county.
Amen. You got that down right on point. Because, see, the violation would have to come to the notice of the mind of the agency because they are the ones who enforce the law. Therefore, the first cause of probable cause would come from them. And thereafter, upon their investigation, which they are charged with, as being an administrative agency, given the power by the legislature, not the Attorney General's office or the county attorney's office. Therefore, if for some reason, because they're the experts in the area of that law, there was an offense for a failure to file such said form, or maybe to put down such said amount, it can be adjudicated at an administrative level where you're dealing with experts in the law.
And where you can raise proper defenses, which
correct.
Are for
correct.
Future litigation.
Correct. But remember, if we don't raise the defenses at the administrative level, they are a no count in the courtroom. Therefore, that's the denial of due process.
Well, let me ask you a hypothetical, and having, in fact, I've got...
But I would totally agree with your voting registration type of situation.
Well,
that's the board.
Corollary, yeah.
That's right.
Let's take a scenario whereby an individual is under investigation, and he says, I never committed that robbery, but I did earn $3,000 in income last year, which I did not claim on my state income tax. Now, would it be your position that that information should be referred under the Administrative Procedures Act to the Department of Taxation or Tax Commissioner, who would then investigate to determine if there's probable cause that a violation had occurred and then refer the matter, or would we have jurisdiction to proceed directly to the grand jury with the admission and a subpoenaed copy of the state income tax return?
Okay. Who is the caretaker of the records? The Commissioner of Taxation.
Department of Taxation Commissioner, whatever.
Okay. Who could verify? Could a county attorney verify it on his own records? No. Because those records fall under the scope and purview of the enforcement action of the administrative agency, meaning the Department of Taxation.
But your position would be that we could not leapfrog by merely having the tax commissioner do his take on the income tax return, appear before the grand jury, and unilaterally, or whatever way you want to describe it.
If the information was passed to the Commissioner of Taxation, and he then requested an administrative hearing, and at the same time requested the purported alleged defendant to bring in books, papers, and records to discuss this matter of his $3,000 of income, most certainly. Now, the Commissioner at that time said, upon my review of the evidence, I think we better contact the assistant state attorney or the county attorney and look at some prosecution here.
And initiate a possible grand jury proceedings.
Sure, because who are you going to call in to testify? You're going to have to call in an agent from the Commissioner's Department.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what is our date in front of Judge Keene?
I think that's tomorrow.
Okay. What I think, in terms of making certain that your client is represented, and in all deference to him, certainly he would not be able to articulate it as well as you. Could you fax me something to that effect? Maybe a letter to that effect?
Well, I was going to drop a brief tonight and get it to somebody somehow.
Fax it down here?
Yeah.
thing done until probably 9, 10 o'clock tonight. Because you see, the thing is that I never do anything halfway. Never.
Yeah.
I know my law so well, and I have such a respect for the beauty of it.
Well, we're talking 1:30 tomorrow?
Yes, I understand it. And make sure somehow it does get to you. Now,
Why don't we continue this thing?
you want to continue it?
Hang on a second. Let me see if the judge is up there. Can you hold?
Sure, go ahead.
You get the case dropped over the phone. It's going to get the judge to drop it right over the phone, right?
Hi, Karen, please.
She's in the courtroom. Can I take a message?
Is the judge on the bench?
Yes, he is.
Here's a brief message for you. Bill Owen in the prosecutor's office, along with Mr. Woods from Minneapolis. I'm sorry.
Karl Granse.
Granse. Mr. Granse from Minneapolis, representing Mr. Woods. We have a 1:30 hearing scheduled for tomorrow, and we are jointly requesting a continuance. How much time would you need, Carl?
Well, if we want to do it for next... You tell me, I'll have it ready.
Well, you're not going to make a special appearance, are you? I mean, you're not traveling down here, right?
No, I couldn't possibly.
Okay, well, why don't we make it...
I mean, we're making a special appearance in front of the court, that's true.
Well, in terms of convenience, you want a couple weeks?
No, a week would be just fine.
Okay.
If we want to do it for next Thursday or whatever his calendar calls for, that would be great.
Okay. Why don't we just say a week, and then if you would have Karen call me to confirm that, I can call Mr. Granse back and make sure he knows that he can get a hold of his client who won't have to come down here tomorrow.
Okay. And what's your number?
My number is 462, as you know, 6390 is my direct line.
930. Okay. I'll give this right to her so she can get right back with you.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
That's great, thank you.
And Carl, I will call you as soon as that's confirmed, but I suppose it would be appropriate to put your client on notice that he wouldn't have to come down here. Do you want to wait to hear from the court before you make that call?
Yes, I will do that.
Oh, your last name?
Is Granse, Granse.
S-E, okay.
Now, I want to just say one brief thing. I have been investigating this case now for some, I think we're pretty near about 9 months. Both sides. We've got 4 cases going right now. And I just saw the newspaper headlines on Ron Woods.
Oh, where's that?
Well, there was in the local newspaper there. The feds are trying to take his airplane. Now, I went through and read with a fine-tooth comb the affidavit. We're looking at a $3 to $5 million lawsuit. These guys, I don't know where they're coming from and what snakes they are, but we have witnesses that can totally blow those idiots away. They searched everything that man had in the airplane, his briefcases, suitcases, everything. And then they never mentioned it in the affidavit. And then they said the dogs smelled cocaine, and the dogs weren't even there. Now, I don't know what kind of witch hunt's going on in this town, but I'll tell you one thing. This Ronnie Woods is a sweetheart. And he is being fingered by I don't know who. Because everything is a secret affidavit. Nobody knows. But there's always this sealed affidavit, which of course you know is ex parte.
Sure.
No, it's complete denial of due process. He's never been charged with a crime, and here we go again.
Can you tell me what court that search warrant was issued from?
I believe that we had one from the federal court, and then it was one from Maricopa County, municipal court, Connecticut County Court, municipal court, and then it was from the county court. Now, I mean, they've come in and they've stolen money and property 3 different times. In excess, somewhere around $600,000 to $700,000.
Are they initiating a federal forfeiture?
Yes, that's right, the 881. And when I read their stupid complaint last night, I said, my God, I can blow this thing away at no time. They lack complete subject matter jurisdiction. They failed to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. They're using, I don't know if you know the size of 881, but it spans 3 different pages with a multiplicity of about 30 different types of acts. They never specify one act at all. I mean, it's just ridiculous what
Yes,
they're
it
trying
is.
to do to this poor man.
Yes,
Well,
it
I
is.
know certainly 881, forfeitures are handled differently than they are under the, the drug forfeiture seizure provisions.
Well, yeah, but I understand that. But again, here we're talking about
A higher standard of proof is what I'm saying.
Admiralty and maritime law they're utilizing in this forfeiture. And in the recent court case, United States versus Good, the justices said, no, this is not an Admiralty or maritime proceeding.
That's right.
Do you know who the assistant U.S.A. is on this thing?
No. I'm going to find out, though, because that guy needs to have... Look, I get really upset being a law professor, and I'm being so akin to the law to watch people trample on it. The law is supposed to bring about equality so we have a higher standard of civilization. We're not seeing it. It's supposed to cure problems, not create problems.
That's a fact.
And we're creating problems where problems don't exist.
Well, I obviously have absolutely no knowledge of the federal proceedings and have met Mr. Woods and have probably just a thimbleful of information on the gentleman.
Do you know what it would do to me, to my reputation, if I were to represent somebody who was guilty?
Well, now, you must admit that must happen once in a while.
I know I don't do it. I do too much of a background check. I publish books, so I'm not going to get my name filled with dirt.
No.
Well, what I would like to do, though, is take a look at your memorandum, and the reason I think it's significant is obviously we want to ensure that our grand jury process is operating appropriately, and I'll discuss it with Bob Smith, and I will discuss it with my boss, the prosecuting attorney, and if a decision is made at this level that this matter should be referred to the tax commissioner, quite frankly, obviously, we've got 8,000 cases a year that we deal with down here, and
you don't need anything more that's going to come back at your face behind you.
we don't go looking for work. I mean, we try to work with everyone, including defense counsel, to make sure everyone is treated fairly down here. And I'm interested in reading your memo, and I appreciate your calling.
Mr. Owen, why don't I give you quick, in case somebody puts you on the spot, just some statutes for reference, okay?
All right.
All I've got is a couple of them here.
First of all, 573302.
Yeah, probably, but here, I'm going to go from the top because I've got them all orange marked here. 5703.20.
03.
Okay.
Okay.
So there you see that.
He's the guy that did the license plate.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
He's the guy, actually it wasn't him, but it was another one of his people that he taught this stuff. He's been using that license plate for 2 years.
He hasn't.
Okay? And he's never been stopped.
No insurance, nibbling.
No, you don't, if you're in that, you're not in any contracts. Okay?
Yep.
The number one rule you have to remember if you're going to use that license plate is don't have your driver's license with you. Okay?
Because that puts you under a contract with a
It's a
different.
contract, that's right. But it's probably a good idea to keep your driver's license. According to him, your driver's license isn't really that big of a contract. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're going to drive a vehicle with government plates on it, then you got to have a license.
That's right.
Okay? So you never know if that's ever going to happen, so you should probably hang on to it, and then if you have to drive something like that, then you got your license.
What about me,
But-
the class 1? I earn my living with it.
There's, you could call him up, and actually, if you look in the Motor Vehicle Transport Act, okay, it's worded almost identically with the California code.
Is it?
And there's truck drivers down there that have those on their vehicles, but what they have
But they
to do,
own their vehicles.
they own their vehicles and they own the load. Okay, they have to buy the load and then take it to point B and sell it.
So they're private contractors.
And they're
plain and simple.
completely private, that's right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing anybody can do to them. And if you read the Motor Vehicle Code, the Motor Transport Act in Alberta, it's worded the same way. I've got a copy of it at home. And it basically defines a private passenger vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay? And it says a private passenger vehicle includes trucks that are carrying your own property. Okay? And then it defines a public vehicle, which is what you're doing. Okay, commercial.
That's right.
And then everywhere in the code it says that a public vehicle has to do this, and a public vehicle doesn't say anywhere where a private passenger vehicle has to do anything.
Is that right?
Yeah. Kind of interesting, isn't it?
Rather.
So as long as you own the load, you have to buy it at point A and
But I don't.
sell it at
I'm
point
just
B.
a wage slave. Eh?
So, well, it might be something to work towards or something anyways, you know. In case the current regime doesn't collapse on its own weight here pretty soon anyways.
Soon.
I think it will.
March 31st next year.
Oh, really?
Never heard of Bill C-234 yet?
What's that?
That's the one where the federal government is being positioned to essentially steal our bank accounts.
That's 124.
The law. 234.
124.
234. Got it sent to me by Diana Blancy.
Well, that's
And then
interesting.
Bill C-19 comes in after that.
So that means, that's okay, I live down close to the border. If I have to, I'll just head south.
Well, you got your bags packed already? As of Monday, the Canuck buck isn't worth a fuck anyway.
Yeah, you know, I know it.
So you better be
But,
stateside when it lands.
Well, I mean, is that fact or paranoia?
No, it's a
As
guarantee.
far as I'm concerned, there's no damn difference in this than when they created the so-called pseudo-constitution in 1982.
Yeah.
Quebec
So-
said, no, we aren't signing it.
Yeah.
And here they're saying, yes, we are sovereign.
Anyways, the important point is that there's two types of citizenship, and the laws that they pass and the crimes are called status crimes. Depends on your status. Okay, if you're involved in these contracts, then it's a crime. You don't have any rights. Matter of fact, let me read you some court cases. These are U.S. again, but they really spell it out. Okay, I don't know if you're aware of this stuff. You said, when you said before that you knew about some of the stuff in the States, but these are pretty interesting.
Gotta go, gentlemen.
Sorry.
In the States, on the stickers, the month sticker, and I'll bet you'll find it on these ones too.
Oh, we got it, for sure.
It says for official use only, if you look at it in the right light.
Oh, really?
And I'll bet you it does. In the States it does. And, interesting to note, that they only put for official use only on government vehicles. But anyways, let me read you some of these court citations. Okay, they probably won't
Right
even
over
see it.
top of it.
They probably won't even see it. Just put it somewhere, maybe with the printing or something. Who knows where? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Without prejudice, all rights reserved. And what that does is it makes it so that they can't use it as evidence in court against you.
Oh.
There's a guy I know in the States that he sent a letter. The city of Hurricane in southern Utah was going to have check stops. Okay? And he sent him a letter, 10-page letter, telling him why check stops were unconstitutional. A friend of his comes up to him about 3 weeks later and says, shoot.
No shit honest they are. No shit honest they are unconstitutional.
Yeah, but this friend of his come up to him about 3 weeks later and said, shoot, the mayor of Hurricane, the chief of police of Hurricane, and the county sheriff are all talking about you right now. And then about a week later, he gets a phone call from the mayor of Hurricane. And the mayor says, well, shoot, thanks for telling us about this. We're not going to have check stops now. But he wasn't interested in whether they had check stops or not. Okay, he wanted to sue their butts. Okay, because what he does, you have to give them notice. Okay, you give them notice. They give us notice all over the place. Speed limit signs, school zone signs, all these signs are put up are telling us this is your notice.
That's
okay?
right.
If they don't put the notice up there, they don't have a leg to stand on. It won't last a second in court.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So he
I wonder if that doesn't work here in People's Republic of Canada, comrade.
he is sending them notice. And what he does when the cops stop him is he puts a tape deck up on the dash and puts it on record. And the cop comes walking up and he just says, is this a custodial stop? In other words, are you going to take me into custody? And the cop will say no. And he'll drive away.
Oh, thanks, bye. I stopped for you. Game over.
That's right.
Nice talking. Bye. Oh, that must fuck him right up.
Well, it's the same as this. Anyways, let me read you these court cases. Here's another court case, Paul versus Virginia.
Oh, that's great. On double density disk or?
I've got, basically what I have is, I've got 12 high density floppy disks, formatted to 1.722 megabytes each, with zip files,
Which means?
compressed.
Oh, yeah.
And I sell those for $100. And I've got the file list right over here. It's got all sorts of stuff in there, including, but not limited to, the world's best encryption software. You can encrypt something and send it over a modem, The FBI is trying to indict the guy that made the software.
Zimmerman?
Yeah, pretty good privacy.
How do you encrypt it on the other end, or how do you?
You give the guy a code. In other words, it could be your name, but the longer the code, the better.
That's the hard part, is getting the code to them somehow.
Well, you can just call them over the phone and say,
hands-on.
"Hi, I'm going to call you tomorrow with the code, and the first 14 words I say will be the code." Then you call them tomorrow and you say, "Floyd Rourke is a spiker with specially prepared individuals for key events." You know, you just give them whatever.
Anyway,
Or you
it's
can
just
mail
like
it to
any
them,
code.
whatever you want.
It's
huh?
tough.
What? Huh?
I mean, that's the part, if they're
Actually-
tapping your phones and all that other stuff.
Actually, the information I have, and I'm not sure how it works. I haven't ever used the thing, but I know it works, and I know the FBI is trying to indict the guy. But from what I understand is that you could, if you know his social security number, or if you know a number, how about the date of his birth or something like this, you could include that in the code. Or what you could do is Spike teaches you how to make your own codes. So you could just send him the code, and they'd never be able to decipher it. They teach you ways to make codes that, I mean, they would need to get a whole bunch of codes over about a month and feed those suckers in a supercomputer, and then the sucker might be able to finally figure out what the code is.
But it'd still never know because the screen remains blank until you tap on. I saw this being worked.
Is that right? Well, that would be with this, okay? With this other code, okay? You use a code to send a code. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's a book on how to make codes, eh? It's the stuff the Army uses during Vietnam, eh? And how you can encrypt something so that they can't break it, okay? And it's actually very simple encryption techniques. But the thing is you can sit down and make a code that you think will be impossible to break, and they'll have that sucker broke like that.
That's right.
And so unless you know how that code works and how to make it, then they're going to have that right now. And if you do it right, they won't have a chance. Okay.
That's what they're so pissed off at Zimmerman for. Right?
So-
He said, there's got to be a back door to this. He says, why would I build it if there was?
There's also on those floppies.
How about
there is-
Piglet?
Yeah.
This is on those floppies.
Yeah.
Okay. This includes the charter, the ordinances, the bylaws, the all of the forms, the application forms, the tests, the teaching on how to teach people about common law townships, everything. There's 250 pages here, and it's all in one of those floppies. And how to set up your own common law township. Okay?
And that's
And
what
it's
we
all
need.
on there.
That's what we need in Calgary, isn't it?
Your common law township would include your own courts, your own judges, your own posse, your own militia, your own constable. You'd tell RCMP to take a hike. You're taking care of your own,
That's right.
and the whole 9 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's all perfectly legal. It's common law.
Yep.
And on top of that, that common law township consists of membership. In other words, the people that are members of that common law township are all over the United States. They don't have to necessarily live in a geographical area.
Oh, is that right?
That's right.
They can step foot outside of that little circle
That's right.
and still be immune.
And in fact, if the government attacks them, there's this principle under the law that says that if the government attacks you, being a member of that township, the government has to deal with the township. And they have a procedure for that all set up in there. Although it's needs work, you might say. But it's there, okay? And they have a procedure for that on how to deal with they send a demand and a notice to cease and desist all of their operations against you and to bring their problems to them, okay? And the whole 9 yards. So it's all in there. There's also a whole bunch of files on court files, court documents, like a motion for discovery. If you get a speeding ticket, you send them this motion to discovery to the prosecuting attorney, and he has to, you tell him, I want to know when that radar detector was calibrated, and I want to know when the last time the cop that was running it got training on how to run it, and all of this stuff, eh? And it's stuff that you want to find out so that you can defend yourself in court. And it's all this stuff. There's motion for a 12-man jury. There's motion to dismiss because of jurisdiction. a motion for discovery for a warrant, all sorts of stuff. Driver's licenses and other stuff. There's, you ever heard of Operation Vampire Killer?
Yeah.
It's in
2000.
Here. Yeah, it's in here.
That whole book.
Yes. That's one of the.
It's a big one.
It's not that big a one in here. This is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, here's another one. A motion to dismiss because of genocide of citizens. In other words, if they're committing genocide against the commoners.
They did when they funded AIDS in 1970.
Well, but they're also committing it against the sovereign citizens or the commoners. Okay, they're trying to disenfranchise, or they're trying to enfranchise you, turn you into one of their serfs. Okay, and so there's a motion to dismiss because they're trying to do that stuff. You see, a motion to dismiss for malicious prosecution. There's all sorts of stuff.
And you got the GATT agreement, and the NAFTA agreement.
The NAFTA is in here. So is GATT is in here.
And that's what, 6,000 pages.
There's letters from Arizona senators. There's letters from Arizona Senator Wayne Stump, where he went and sent a letter to every county sheriff, every police chief, every head of every law enforcement agency in Arizona, saying that there are people out there who have rescinded all of their contracts with the state, local, and federal governments, and as such have become freemen under the organic Constitution of the Republic of the United States of America. And because of that, are not going to have any evidence of contract, like driver's licenses, registration on their vehicles, social security numbers, and such. And he said, what they have done is perfectly appropriate, and leave them alone. And I want to know about every confrontation between these people and law enforcement so that I can tell them about the appropriateness of their actions.
No
and
kidding.
he is still a senator to this day. It's got his phone number on there and everything.
And he's a senator of Arizona.
That's right. And so it's also got stuff in here on land patents, or in Canada they're called land grants, where you can get true allodial property rights.
Allodial property rights.
That's right. Where you don't have to pay property taxes anymore.
Nor get stinking permisios to build fences.
That's right. You don't need their permission for nothing. But you got to have it set up right first. Okay.
Big paper chase there.
Not really. It's actually not that difficult. What you do?
I thought essentially you had to declare your house was an embassy.
What you have to do, number one, what you have to do, number one, is pay off your mortgage. Okay?
Oh yeah, so now you're not under debt to the Jew banker.
That's right, because and also, see, what happens is when you fill out those mortgage paperwork, okay, you signed a form in there that said that you agreed to pay all the property taxes. You know why you had to sign that form?
So that you would pay them.
Well, more than that, because see, the only reason that property taxes are payable on your house is because your house is involved in a commercial activity, okay? And the commercial activity it's involved in it is owned by a bank. You don't own it until you pay it off.
That's right.
Okay? So the bank owns it, and they're involved in commercial activity.
Right.
And so, technically, they are the ones who are liable for the property taxes, not you, but they're pushing it off on you.
That's right.
Okay? That's why you're signing the form. You're agreeing, you're taking it away from them and taking it upon yourself to pay the property taxes. So
people don't know.
that's number one. Okay. Number two, you have to get it paid off. And number two, what you do then is you got to bring forward the land grant. In other words, way back when there was a land grant issued on that land. Okay? What you have right now is not real property. It's called real estate. Okay?
Yeah.
When you have an estate in something, you have an interest in it, but you don't own it. It's like your father's estate.
Right.
Okay, you have an interest in it, but you don't own it.
Right.
With real estate, you have an interest in it, but you don't own it. The government does. Okay?
Yeah.
And you don't even get a land grant. You get a deed. Okay? That's evidence of your interest in the property, but that's not an ownership certificate. Okay? And the ownership comes from the land grant. And what you have to do is go back in the archives and the records. I could tell you how to do it for sure in the States, but in Canada, I'm not sure, except that you're going to have to go back in the archives and the records where the title documents are kept, and you go back far enough, well, you might have to go back 100 years till you find some guy that had a land grant on the property.
Right.
Okay? And what you do is you copy that sucker, and you white out the legal description, because he probably had 10 sections back then instead of your city block or city
Right.
lot or whatever, okay?
Right.
And you white out that legal description and you type in your legal description of your property. And then you take it down and get it notarized, okay?
Right.
And then you record it. Now you have a land grant.
Oh.
It's not that difficult.
Oh.
But you need to be aware that when you do that, you will not be able to get a mortgage on your property, okay?
Okay.
Because they cannot put a lien against it.
That's right.
They can't take it away from you if you don't make the payments. You have a land grant.
That sounds sort of like the Homestead Act in Texas.
Kind of. It's probably similar. It's hard to say. But they can't take it away from you if you have a land grant in your property. They can't put a lien against it. And you don't have to pay property taxes. And they can scream and yell and jump up and down, but there ain't a damn thing they can do about it. So let them scream and yell and jump up and down. You just tell them, I don't have marketable title anymore. Because that's what the big sales pitch was. Trying to get people into these warranty deeds and all that other shit, is they're saying, well, you need marketable title so you can sell your land. It's going to be harder to sell your land because whoever buys it's going to have to pay cash. Can't borrow money.
Why can't you tote the note?
You could, sure. You could do that. Nothing stopping you from doing that. But again, it might not be advisable because you might not be able to take it back because they'll have the land grant. See what I'm saying?
Oh yes,
Yes,
I
see
do.
what I'm saying?
Why then don't you tote the note on the plan that this is a private contract you're entering into with me,
And you
the
don't get
title holder, and you don't get it
You might be
till
able
it's
to.
paid for.
You might be able to. That might be an idea. But and actually, you could probably do that. And you could probably see under the common law, you have the right to pursue happiness, and pursuing happiness means making money. I mean, we're not happy unless we have food to eat.
That's
what I
right.
mean? And so, therefore, as long as it's for your own personal business, and I hate to use that word in Canada, but as long as it's for your own personal business in the States, definitely you can use that word. You're not involved in commercial activity.
Why? Because
It's
we're so
only-
socialistic up here that business isn't allowed?
It's real Marxist, let me tell you.
No shit.
They reinterpreted all sorts of stuff. But anyways, so you can
You've lived there for 10 years, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I love it down there.
I don't blame you.
And I was in Oklahoma City when they blew up the building.
Were you?
Yeah. But anyways, matter of fact, we were just getting ready to set up some militia training.
Would you stick around here, or are you heading back to stateside again as soon as this little
Oh, I
spill's over?
live in southern Alberta now.
Do you?
Yeah.
Have you got any property there that is out of the way?
I don't have 2 nickels to rub together right now. I want to set up a common law township, but I'm just basically, matter of fact, I'm thinking about going down to the States and doing a contract fixing airplanes for 6 months. And then when I get back, I got a little job in Lethbridge that I can work on a contract basis fixing airplanes at the airport, eh?
Surely
And
there's
in the
something up
summertime-
here you can do for Canadian. They're talking about moving in their whole shooting match out there to Maine Con.
Is that right?
So they should be glad to see somebody coming in and saying, hey,
Well, I've talked to Canadian, and they don't want somebody with my kind of experience. They like to hire somebody right out of school because then they can shape them and mold them the way they want, you see.
I thought that only
And,
applied in sales positions.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only one direction you can turn bolts, right?
Yeah, well, actually, what happens is
Are
after
you a
a while,
machinist with these things, or
I'm
you fix
well,
the skin? Do you fix the engines?
I fix
What?
it all.
Is that right?
Matter of fact, I don't even fix it anymore. I inspect it. Is what I do. I go along and I say that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. I make a big list, hundreds of write-ups, and then I'll go back and put it all on paper, and then they fix it all, and then I go back after they fix it and I say that's okay, that's okay.
So you're
that's
the job
okay.
foreman.
You got to do that one over again.
You're the
No,
job foreman then.
I'm an inspector.
But it's hard to
I
tell
work as an
sometimes when they
inspector.
do something on
They
the
have
inside.
inspectors, and that's all you do is you inspect, and you verify like airworthiness directives and service bulletins and that kind of stuff from the manufacturer saying, on these models you have to do this because we're getting cracks here, and so I go and I look and see if it's been done or
Magnaflux
not.
it and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I do NDT. Yeah, I do all of that stuff. I do. It's basically they might have 300 or 400 people working there, and maybe 10 inspectors, if that. And I'll be one of the inspectors. And just
So that's going to mean they're taught to make us.
it's a little more money.
So you're a member of the
I'm
International
used to making-
Association?
I just turned down a job in Wichita, Kansas, $20 an hour straight time, $30 an hour overtime.
Yep.
And down there, I have it set up so they don't take taxes out.
Yep.
So it's all cash.
You're straight contracting.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Well, actually, not everybody can set it up that way, but I have it set up that way.
Are you a member of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers?
Why be a member of a
That's
union
right.
if you don't have to be, because they take a lot of money out of your
You
paycheck?
got
Well, I just wonder if that's a kind of a contract thing too. That
Yeah, well,
screws
states,
you
I
up
think,
some.
got a lot of work to rule states.
There's lots of there's actually, they call them right to work states, and otherwise California is not a right to work state, but a lot of states are right to work states, which means that you can go and work for the company without joining the union if
Yeah.
you don't want to join the union.
Texas is one.
So unions are really like powerless.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's driver's license cancellation letters. There's conspirators hierarchy, committee of 300, a whole book on that.
Is that right?
There's a constitutional common law library which contains the Bill of Rights of all 50 states, the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the Northwest Ordinance, and the Constitution of every one of the states. Is all in here.
What about Puerto Rico? Is it the 51st
It's a
state?
union. It's a territory.
And
So
it
it's-
is under martial law,
It's
like you
basically,
would
yes,
believe.
that's right. That's right. That's an area that D.C. has legitimate control over. Okay, that's why
And
the
boy, do
states.
they affect that control.
That's why the states were so eager to become a state. When it was territories, it was under D.C.'s control. But as soon as they become a state, then they're a sovereign nation unto themselves, and D.C. takes a hike. D.C. only has control over the D.C. and
So that's why they won't allow those poor PRs to form a state. They won't allow them statehood.
well, I don't know. It depends on how hard they're trying, I guess. Maybe they don't
Well,
want
the
to.
poor
They don't
fucks
want
up. When are they going
From
to
what
get
I
their
heard.
face off the stone long enough to be able to figure it out?
Well, that's probably true, but it's a matter of keeping them stupid too. Yeah, you're right.
You bet it is.
But anyways, there's loads of stuff in here. There's McIlvaney Advisor newsletters. There's looks like 2, 4, 6, 7 of them. There's matter of fact, there's more than that. There's probably 10 or 12 or 15. There's there's the actual congressional record where the Senate sat down and appropriated $10 million to develop AIDS. It's in here.
10 million.
10 million.
That was 1970.
develop
That was-
AIDS.
And that was the
Late
91st
60s.
Congress.
Yeah, it was in that area.
What?
First
Yeah, I'm
session.
serious.
It's
I'm
the
serious.
truth.
It's in here.
That's in New
To
World Order
develop
Corruption.
AIDS?
Correct.
Yeah.
Subcommittee hearing
Well,
What
on the funding
possible
for
purpose
biological.
could they have?
Biological warfare.
Dr. MacArthur made the pitch, and Representative Sykes made the grant.
Social Security revision letters. Rescission letters, I should say. There's, oh, this is a good one. Silent weapons for silent wars.
That's me.
That's how the CIA takes over a country. Okay. There's all sorts of
Oh, I thought we were
BBS.
talking mufflers for Annabelle.
There's all sorts of BBS numbers and stuff like that where you can get a hold of get on BBSs and get information from other.
What is that? Bulletin board system? So it'd be
Bulletin board services computers.
Okay.
With your computer, you can log on to other computers and download files and stuff. Matter of fact, all the files from here are downloaded. They're shareware. They're free if you want to make the phone call to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it'll cost you a whole lot more than $100 to download them because you're going to be
The
calling.
time when the long
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
We'll eat you
Okay.
raw.
There's trusts in here. Okay, you can set up your own common law, pure common law trust.
So you can will guns to your sons and like that?
Well, it's more than will. You give it to them right now to a trustee.
living will.
You give it to, it's more than that. Okay, a trust is a separate legal entity. It's like a corporation. Okay, except a trustee has a board of trustees. A corporation has a board of directors. A trust has beneficial interest certificates. A corporation has stock certificates. Okay. Anyways, the big difference between a trust and a corporation is that a trust exists by virtue of the common law. These are things we'll learn about in Spike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
These trust exists by virtue of the common law. Okay. So they can't change the rules. A corporation exists by virtue of a statute, so they can change the rules anytime they want. Okay. Trust exists by virtue of your right to make a contract with somebody else, and what you do is you give away your assets, whatever, to a trustee who could be your brother or whoever. Okay. And it's held in trust for your children.
Right.
And that's all it is.
Right.
And you can be the trust manager. You can still be on the board of trustees. You just can't be the chairman. Okay, and so you still have control over everything, but it's not yours. So if you file bankruptcy, that's not yours. Okay, so that's not included in the bankruptcy. My car out there is
That's
owned
right.
by trust.
It's like a certified check, only different. It's held in reserve until a later date.
Exactly.
When it's cashed.
And so what happens is that you can distance yourself. You can become a pauper and not own anything. And if somebody wants to sue you, sue me. I don't care. I don't have nothing. You know what I mean? But yet the trust can provide you. Rockefeller is a good example.
Foundations.
Yes, foundations. But have you ever heard of Fidelity Investments?
No, but I've heard of MetLife, which Rockefeller owns. That's a happy Rockefeller.
Well, Fidelity, I don't know if Rockefeller owns Fidelity Investments, but it's a trust. It's a huge mutual fund company. They own hundreds of mutual funds in New York, and they manage literally billions of dollars. And it's all a trust.
Is that right? And
So-
which means it's tax exempt, of course.
And that's another nice thing about trust is the money, as long as it stays in the trust, is not taxable. As soon as it comes out, it's taxable.
Oh, so in other words, there's no such thing as insurance award then. Like if let's talk about life insurance. If some widow goes forward and she makes a claim against that insurance money or that policy, and that fund is under trust, as soon as she goes to reach for the check, there's Uncle Sam with his IRS harpoon standing right there at the breathing hole, right? She gets it when she reaches for it. If it's not being taxed when it's under trust.
Well, it depends.
Just like a double RSP,
No,
right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because there's a contractual obligation on the part of the trust to pay her the money. Okay.
Okay, well,
it
they
depends.
do, but it's still going to be
depends.
subject to Internal Revenue Service.
It
tax.
depends. It depends. If it's like if it's a trust, okay, like it's her husband that set up the trust and put the money in there, and she's supposed to get it when he dies or some of it,
Yeah.
then yes, it'll be taxable. Okay. But if it's an insurance policy where she is paying for this, okay, in other words, she has to pay $50 a month or $10 a month or whatever
Yeah.
for this insurance, well, it's no different than any other insurance contract, and insurance isn't taxable.
Because it's an award.
Because you pay for it. You pay tax on the money before you buy the insurance.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So then it constitutes double taxation.
I'm gonna take off.
So they can't tax you twice. But the rule is basically is that you got to pay tax once. If you don't pay tax on the money, it's put in the trust, right?
Yeah.
And then meanwhile the trust is making money. Well, the trust isn't paying tax on the money that it's
Correct.
making. Okay.
Correct.
So
Correct.
when the money comes out of the trust, then it's taxable.
Right.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's only taxable because she didn't have a contract. She wasn't paying money into the trust. You see what I'm saying?
Well, what if her hubby that was maintaining the policy was paying it?
Well, as long as there's a contract and it falls under the insurance laws, then it's not taxable.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
I have to leave,
All right.
so,
All right. Well, I'm probably going to be heading out here pretty soon. So
yeah, well, whoever goes last, just push that
Lock the door.
bottom. Don't worry about the deadbolt.
okay. All right.
So,
All right. Well, I might be here when you come back if you're coming back. I don't know what these guys are doing, but I should be heading.
I'll be gone for hours.
Oh, will you? Okay. All right.
I want to get a buddy over here who's got a computer right now, and those would be of service to him. I was hoping this was all going to be in book form, but I can see now that it was in book form.
Most of it's on those floppies. I mean, there's so much stuff on those
See you, Peter.
floppies that I couldn't even start to cover.
No.
You know. Now the stuff, spike training is going to cover all this stuff. You know, if we ever get it going. But the key is that's the big question is whether we actually get it going. I'd kind of like to.
CPA book post? Is this in Canada?
That's in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, here, let me give you this. You can have one of these and one of these at least. And this is about spike. Well, you already got one of these.
Yep.
But the other thing is about spike and what spike is all about and what it's intended to teach you. And that'll get you started at least. And a lot of these books here, like there's organization, okay? This is the same organization that CIA uses when they take over a country.
Yeah.
It's good organization. Tells you how to organize yourselves in an effective manner. There's also there's stuff on electronic surveillance.
Yeah.
And it's like here. I'll show you the book. It's the Justice Department. Look at this. United States Department of Justice, Criminal Division, Office of Enforcement Operations, Electronic Surveillance Manual. Okay? you can have a copy of it. I'll be selling copies of it, but they'll be available at least, so you know what they do. Okay, and then there's another book that tells you how to counter surveil, what to do to protect yourself against what they do. You know what I mean?
I know what it is right now, but unfortunately, I don't think it's enough. You got to use payphones everywhere you go, and you got to get those prepaid calling cards. And you got to get a kid loitering around the 7-Eleven to buy it for you.
Yeah, and that's probably true. And never. All the key is not to say anything sensitive over the phone. Matter of fact, right now they could listen to us through the phone.
It's
believe it or not.
Believe it or not, that tech's been around since '79 before you could say fiber optic.
Yeah, and so the key is that encrypt it. If there's something that's going to be sensitive, is encrypt it with the encryption software and email it, and they can't read it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And also there's other things you can do. Actually, it's called masking. Okay, they have a shotgun microphone. Spike talks about it. They have a shotgun microphone where they can listen. They can pick your voice out of a crowd 5 miles away and listen to you. And they indicted a gangster who was laundering money based on that. Okay,
a shotgun microphone.
That's right. So the key is
super directional
to mask your voice. Okay. In other words, if you want to have a secure conversation, you tape record your voice saying whatever you want to say. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay. And you copy that into like 4 or 5 different cassette tapes. Okay.
Well, they've already got a phone system that does that. You can send wave forward through a spotlight.
And then you position those things around you, and then you and the person you play those things, you play them loud, and then you and your other person you want to have a conversation with kind of quietly have a little conversation. Okay. And these are playing loud over here. So what they're going to hear?
They've got to scrub the shit out of this in order to get the
and they
principles.
They can't, because even with that shotgun microphone or anything, they can electronically separate out the different voices. Okay, but if the other voice is playing is your voice, how are they going to separate your voice saying?
Because your voice is predominant.
Exactly, and all they can do is separate out the different voice sounds. You know what I mean? And so they can't, and they might be able to pick out his a little bit, but they will only get half the conversation for one thing, and for another thing, they won't be able to get it all. And I can guarantee you they won't, because what they did when they got that gangster, okay, is there's 15 seconds of the conversation they couldn't get because some guy was walking by with a radio.
Really? And they fed the gangster boomster box.
That's right. That's right. So that's the key, is just to mask it. Okay. So even in here, I mean, there's ways of doing it. There's counter measures. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what they teach you. I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. There's always a way. And it's not that expensive.
We got to find somebody that's got some farmland turf where we can set up shop on, and we can start doing some serious exercises.
For them to spend $20 million to get a satellite in a place to listen to what we're talking about. So obviously, you know, the key is one thing.
Especially when they can do it with land-based grants a whole bunch easier.
Sure. Well, and again, they wouldn't. They'd have land-based in our case because we're in their territory. But somebody like Gaddafi,
out that window from across the street.
You're right. But somebody like Gaddafi, they wouldn't necessarily be able to do that, and they'd probably have to have a satellite. Yeah. And they would. And they do. Matter of fact, the guy that does the spike training and talks about this was in those rooms, having those conversations, saying, I'd really like the satellite to come over here so that I can listen to this guy. And there was another guy saying, well, I'd really like to have the satellite come over here so I can listen to this guy. And who they were talking to was making the decision. That's the kind of people that are going to be on spike training. So if we do get this thing going, I would recommend, you know, that it would be worthwhile checking it out. I'm kind of, in the States they do spike training for $100 a head U.S., but they have Bo Greats live and all these other guys live, you know, and we're just doing tapes. So obviously I don't think I'm going to do it for that. Matter of fact, I was thinking maybe enough to pay for my expenses, you know, $25 a head or something like that. It's a weekend. It'll be 2 days for sure. And it's 8 hours or more of videotapes, and then plus we'd be talking about the law and everything else too.
Yeah.
So you're talking a good 2 days.
$25 a head, man. That's
you know, when you've been talking about Spike and I've been recording it, I'd like to kind of put that together, maybe in a little Spike commercial or something. You know what I mean? I don't know how you distribute it though. I mean,
word of mouth. And dots.
Well, you know, let's say if there was a
and that's
video.
the thing is that I don't want to. This is one thing I don't want to advertise.
No, that's right.
Because I want to keep a low profile because of books like that and other things that are being taught. You know.
Well, I'll just turn this off then, maybe.
Well, whatever.
Well, I don't know.
I think that's a good idea, really.
But,
Maybe it could be an
mind-
advertisement for us to give to people.
I don't mind you doing it to select people, okay? But
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to put it over TV.
Oh,
sort of
no,
thing.
no, no.
You know what I mean?
Well, actually,
Not to spike.
quite seriously, I think that they'd be more worried about the law than the damn spike. Quite frankly, I really
Yeah.
think so.
Well, that's possible. I don't know.
No, actually, no. There is
See,
something.
The spike has military applications, and it's not what I'm worried about them knowing that I'm doing. But they could easily do what happened, like in Oklahoma City, and say, "Well, shoot, maybe that Fern guy did this."
Yeah, that's
You
right.
see what I'm saying? And I
That's
don't need
where
that
an
kind of stuff.
affidavit for
Sure.
your arrest
Or
a
whatever.
week earlier before they blew up the building.
Yeah, and then
John Doe.
it wouldn't do me any good to go to the States.
Well, what
because
is-
they'd be looking for me down there too.
What do you think the story is on the Oklahoma blast, anyway?
You mean
Well,
there's
I
a
think it was
question?
probably the government did it, quite frankly.
Undeniably.
Especially when that FBI agent, comes out and says all this stuff. I mean, if anybody's got the experience and the knowledge and everything, I mean, he knows.
Couple that with the fact that the building that houses the plans for the fuel-air mixture bombs
there's-
that they used was burgled about the week before.
I didn't even know.
So you
about
figured
that.
it was fab,
It's the truth.
Yeah.
And
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
yeah,
fab bomb.
yeah, fuel-air mixture. They
wouldn't
call it
surprise
binary bombs. You call it whatever.
Well, that's
you
what
want.
I thought actually at first, because I figured there wasn't anything. It was a second two-stage explosion according to the seismics,
That's right.
which is the characteristic of
Yeah.
a fab.
Yeah, 10 seconds exactly apart.
So,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
what I'm trying to do with my floppies is I want to basically try and increase by about 50% the stuff that's in those floppies by, making it a Canadian application. And if I could do that, then that would be great. And then everybody would have a real good resource to say, Chuck you Farley, I'm not playing the game no more. You know what I mean? But in the meanwhile, there's all sorts of stuff here. Have you seen some of this stuff?
Oh,
There's all these
is this a Renee?
cookbook. That's a cookbook.
This?
Yep.
I can build my own C4 plastique right now, and that's just fine by me. But right now, I'm working on shaped charges.
Well,
Wine bottle.
there's one of those books that tells you about the charges.
Yes.
Yeah, anti-armor stuff.
See, and I got this book right here.
Anti-generator
Or
stuff.
this book right here talks about citizenship again. This is from one of the groups in the States that teach these people have helped 50,000 people become sovereign citizens in the United States.
Is that right?
In California.
In California alone?
So if we come down and become U.S. citizens, then we could go to those guys and they'll
Yeah,
probably
well,
help us. Actually, would they
actually-
help us join the United States or
Did you
the,
bring
one of the
money with
states?
you,
or
Well,
whatever?
Yeah, they might. But the key is if you got a U.S. ancestor, you don't need any help anyways. You just go down there and live there
I got this part.
Yeah.
That's good.
and assert your rights. That's all.
Mhm.
If you got a U.S. ancestor, that's all you need. That's all. You don't need anything else. And they would help you to, well, again, all these documents, you should have all these documents because all of that stuff is good stuff for anybody that wants to be a state citizen.
Mhm.
All this stuff in here, right?
Actually, I was wondering if you could possibly mention, just like,
But I don't have it in there now, no. I need to get a scanner is what I need. Then I could.
that would
Well, I
be
could
really
Business in
handy.
a big way. We get you cranking out facts and all them other good things.
You'd be wearing out laser printers, buddy.
Well, what I'd like to do, actually, to be quite frankly, I've got a printer that I'm going to get a bunch of those printed up and make
Fax?
them available. Huh?
Facts? FACs?
No. Well, I could make them, once I get them scanned up, I could put them on text files and then make them available for anybody that wanted one, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I want to set up a BBS, okay?
Uh-huh.
And once I have a BBS set up, then they can basically download all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But also what I'm working on is getting them printed. So there's a printer in Edmonton that will print them for me.
So you can do all the typesetting.
Well, I wouldn't mess
Oh,
with
no. So you would just, and they are not copywritten.
Oh, you
They're
So-
not, no.
Yeah, so they just shoot right out of
Yeah.
the damn book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the key is that it's still going to take some money, and right now I'm just tight on funds.
Well, it's just the damn plates are going to cost, what were our plates looking at? Maybe $11 a pop or something, including the negs,
Yeah.
which is pretty good. But still, times 100 pages, that's $1,100 for one crummy book.
Yeah.
Glenn, I came here today with the intention, Pete said something about I might be able to get some useful information off you for about $75, but I'm in the same situation you are right now.
Yeah.
In that the soonest my check to you would be any good would be this coming Friday. And so I'd give you a post-dated check, or if I'd see you again next weekend, well then we could deal cash.
I don't know if I'm going to be here next weekend. I don't know if anybody wants to. See, what I'd come up here for, if I came up again, would be to do spike training. Okay,
Yep.
I was planning on doing it this weekend, but it didn't work out that way. And I don't think anybody else was.
I don't think anybody.
You know,
listen, I didn't even know what the hell was. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Nobody knows what's
So,
going on.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is spike training, which would mean phase 1 of spike.
Right.
Okay, there's 10
Boot
phases.
camp.
Yeah, basically, that's right. And it'll start with land navigation, 72-hour kits, creating a safe zone in your home. Okay, some self-defense, and it's basically it's 2 days. And it's most of it will be watching videotapes and then stopping and practicing some of the stuff, because there's some of the stuff that's technique, and you need to learn the technique.
Sure.
And it's not just looking at it; you got to do it.
That's right. Hands-on.
And so then we go through and watch the tapes and then practice it and move on. And then we'd also be talking about the law and all the rest of it. So, whichever, if we can get a group of people that want to do the spike training, then I'll come back next weekend. I don't have anything booked right now at this point, and I'll book it for next weekend. I'm working on, I want to set up and basically get every weekend busy with spike. But I don't want to do it in the same area all the time, because it gets to be a draw on resources. You know what I mean? If you're paying $25 every weekend, and then plus you want to buy this and that, and whatever else,
Sure.
and plus you need to have time to digest what you're getting. You know what I mean?
Well,
Before we
yes
get
and
together
no.
again.
Yes and no. You want to keep the stuff fresh, and the only way to keep it fresh is to keep coming back at it on every weekend that you can, and
Sure.
and rehearse and go forward.
And see, that's another thing, is a very important part of spike is that what I'm doing is passing it on to you. And this is one thing that Bo Gray said, is that he's passing on his stuff to us, and he expects us to pass it on to others. And so what I'm saying is that we're doing phase 1 now, and by the time we get to phase 4, we're going to start talking about organization, okay? And by then, I would expect that you and a group of people here would start setting up your own organization and start passing it on to others. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you get the videotapes, and you start showing it and sharing it with others, and teaching them the things that you're learning about self-reliance and preparedness and survival and all those other things.
Yeah.
The
time is so short. Though.
Actually, the Motor Transport Act doesn't even apply to sovereigns or commoners, whichever you want to call yourself. Okay. In fact, what you do is you go back to the principle of stare decisis again comes in, because I can show you. You go back into the Koch's reports, okay, which is go back to like 1650, and there's court cases in there that where the Crown loses, and they're told that they cannot regulate the highways, but they have to maintain them. That's
Canadian.
right there.
That's Magna Carta.
That's English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's a perfect one for us, because the older the better. You get one that old, how are they going to argue against it? They can't. Okay, and it says it right there. But
It's Glen Fern. Is there E on the end, or just straight up Fern?
FEARN.
FEARN. Oh.
Yes. But anyways, so that's what you have to do is do that. Now, if you guys want to have spike, if we can get some people together for next weekend, then I'll come back for spike. But thank you very much.
That's good for next Friday. Make sure.
Yeah, that'd be gorgeous. And they're always moving in the shot, so.
So what the heck is the common law right to trial?
Well, it's basically the common law. What the common law is 800 years of jury trial decisions. That is the sum and essence of the common law. And the Magna Carta in England is what started it all. Okay, what happened is William the Conqueror came and conquered England in 1066, and after William the Conqueror, he tried to impose Greco-Roman law on much, quite frankly. But I guess they didn't have much choice. It's kind of interesting to note that William the Conqueror never did conquer downtown London. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've heard something about that.
Have you ever watched the British Parliament convene?
That's what the Black Rod.
I'm
You have
not
to
sure
demand
about
entry
Black
to
Rod. Yeah, where
to
the Queen
London,
goes to that
yeah.
door. That is called Temple Bar. Okay, that door that she goes to is a gate into downtown London. It's called Temple Bar, and she goes to that door. There's a big oak door, and there's a little foot square wooden door inside of it. Okay, and she goes and beats on the door with her scepter, and the mayor opens the door and he says, "What do you want?" To the Queen. and she asks him for permission to come into downtown London. Serious. To this day, she cannot enter downtown London. It's a foreign country. She is not. It's not her jurisdiction, and she can't enter downtown London without permission. And she's escorted everywhere she goes. Yeah. And because William the Conqueror never did conquer downtown London, and in downtown London is the 4 only true law schools in the world. One of them is called the Inns of Court, and what they teach is 800 years of common law jury trial decisions. That's all they teach, and they teach true law and where it comes from and what it does and everything. All the rest of the law schools in the world, all they teach is procedure, how to present evidence, how to go to court, what to do, how to sue somebody, all that stuff. That's all they teach is procedure. They don't teach you